everyone, and welcome to the Sania Farooqui show. Joining us today, we have a journalist from New Delhi, Neha Dixit. She covers politics, gender, and social justice in South Asia. She has worked with multiple mediums and reported for Al Jazeera, The Washington Post, Caravan, The Wire, and others. She has won over a dozen international and national journalism awards, including International Press Freedom Award 2019, Kurt Schock Award in International Journalism in 2014, the Lorenzo Natali Prize for Journalism from the European Commission in 2011, Chameli Devi Jain Award for Outstanding Woman Journalist in 2016, and many others. She's a contributor to the UNESCO Casebook of Investigative Journalism in 2011, Zuban Anthology on Sexual Violence in South Asia, and Firsthand graphic non-fiction in India and others. Neha, thank you so much for joining us. It is truly wonderful to have you on the Sania Farooqui show today.
Thank you so much, Sania. Thank you for giving me this chance to talk to you.
Yeah, look forward to our conversation. So Neha, tell us a little about your journey as a journalist, and how has journalism, the media space in India, changed over the years?
This is my 15th year in journalism, so that way one has been witness to the transition that it has made in the last few years. For me particularly, I was not familiar with journalism or media per se, because the environment that I grew up in and the family that I grew up in, nobody knew much about it. It was good. So because I grew up in Lucknow and I came to Delhi, I was a student of Delhi University and then later a student of Jamia University. It was helpful for me to understand the context within which things happen. So for me, particularly, that was helpful in making my foray into investigative journalism, because I very soon enough realized that this was also the time. So this was around 2006 when I entered journalism, and I understood that this was the time when TV was picking up, and this was also a time that started defining journalists or reporters only with ones who have a mic in their hand. So it was difficult to actually break into that space and do some story that gets some kind of visibility and the story has some impact on the ground. So for me, it was helpful to make my foray into investigative journalism, because I understood that if there is any scope for any nuance or to go in depth into an issue, it's helpful to practice my journalism that way. It's been interesting. I have lived through times where I remember that in our newsrooms, we were told that if there is a legal notice against you, think of it as a badge of honor, because that means that somebody has taken cognizance of your story. And we have moved to a time where legal notices have changed to criminal cases, draconian law and order related cases against journalists. So that's how it has changed. So there was a government earlier, and no government is ever happy with the journalists doing their job honestly, because journalism essentially is anti-establishment. So no government is happy with an honest journalist. But I have seen how it has become more vindictive and more dangerous for not just me, but for any practitioner of journalism currently in majoritarian India.
And you've been an independent journalist for a long time now. How easy or difficult has this space been for you? You cover politics, health, social justice issues, gender issues. So tell us a little about your work and a few of the stories that you've worked on.
Sania, I think, like I said, in the last 15 years, there has been a lot of transition in the way news organizations function. So to summarize quickly, one is that there is a lot of corporate political nexus within the mainstream media now. So it's not just corporate media wanting to do certain kinds of news reports targeted at certain audience, so that which is essentially urban rich or urban middle class population. But apart from that, we've also now witnessing a time where there is a lot of corporate political nexus in this media. So political agendas are also deciding what actually makes it to the front page or what makes it to prime time. So for me, independent journalism was my way of subverting this kind of self-censorship that now exists within newsrooms. Because there was a time when I realized that a lot of stories were getting killed within the newsrooms. There was a lot of self-censorship. Uh, particularly remember a time I was working with the television news channel, and the marketing team came and told us that from now on, our target audience is the urban rich. So stop doing these farmer suicides, back of the beyond, bleeding heart stories, and maybe do investigations on who are the rich kids racing fast cars in South Delhi. So that was a defining moment for me, and that's why I switched to independent journalism. I do want to say that independent journalism also has become a very privileged thing now, because it does not particularly support the kind of work you do. There are not enough resources. Our systems within news organizations are such that they're not very helpful towards freelancers. So, for example, you do not have health insurance. If you have a legal case against you, then the news organization does not support you. I have 3 against me and I am funding that. So anybody who has any kind of financial dependency of other people on them, they are, I think, don't think they it's very helpful for them. But for me, how independent journalism helped was that if if I pitch a story, investigative story to one news organization and they don't publish it, then I withdraw and give it to the second, and then the second doesn't, then I give it to the third. So the story eventually comes out, it doesn't get killed. Last few years, some of the investigations that I have done is one of the prominent ones is how the RSS, the Hindu fundamentalist groups in Northeast India, are trafficking children between the age group of 3 to 11 and taking them to other parts of India for the purpose of indoctrination in political Hinduism, which we call Hindutva. So I traced one particular case where 31 girls between the age group of 3 to 11 were taken from 5 districts of Assam and taken to Punjab and Gujarat. The story was waterproof because the parents also, they were told that these girls will be given free lodging and free education. But once the girls were taken away, the parents just couldn't trace them. Many government bodies, statutory bodies, wrote to RSS saying that this is actually child trafficking and violating number of international laws and Indian laws. But despite that, they paid no heed and the girls were not sent back. So I traced 11 girls in Patiala and 20 girls in Surendranagar district of Gujarat, where I found out that how they were not even in a formal system of education. They were doing bhajan classes, sanskar classes and stuff. So this story was corroborated from 3 various sources, not from the government documentation, from the parents, and actually finding those girls. So that earned me 2 criminal cases. One is in, both the cases are in Guwahati, and they have been on for the last 6 years. The other stories that I can mention from the recent past is another investigation that I had done for The Wire, and that was again how the UP government is touting police encounters, police shootouts as their achievement. And as we speak, the UP police has conducted 6,000 police shootouts in which almost close to 200 people have lost their lives. So I found out that how most of these people who were killed were either between the age group of 17 to 40, all of them either Muslim men, OBC men, or Dalit men from extremely impoverished socioeconomic background. And I also found out that how what the police claims is a chance encounter is not really within the moment or spontaneous, but how it was planned, because when one found out the dead body pictures of these people, their eyes were gouged out, their skull was broken, which clearly indicated that how they were beaten up and got hold of before they were shot dead. So that is another one. So yeah, these are the 2 major ones, and then there are more.
And you face a lot of backlash and a lot of harassment once whenever you have published any story, whether it is online or offline. And recently there were reports of an unidentified person who attempted to break into your apartment. You've been stalked, you've received death threats and all sorts of abuses. You, like you mentioned, you also have criminal cases filed against you. Why do you think you're being targeted? And how, since when has this sort of targeting towards the kind of work that you do started? Like, has it been in the last 7 years, or did this happen, earlier? Like you said, you've been a journalist for almost 15 years. Did you ever face this kind of harassment and abuse earlier for your stories, or is it just in the recent years that we're seeing, the online and offline abuse and threats that have been coming your way?
Sadia, I look at it in three parts. One is that, yes, like for example, in 2008, I had done this large investigation on Khap panchayats. And this was a time when there was not much conversation about Khaps. And how I found out that there were a number of honor killings because of certain Khap panchayat diktats. So that was the time when internet was just picking up. So I do know that I've seen lots of forums where there were these conversations about people saying, oh, she should be beaten black and blue and da da da. But that was 2008. How it has changed in the last few years, particularly from 2013, I would say, just before the previous general elections, is I started receiving this kind of backlash on internet was because I had reported on the Muzaffarnagar riots,
Yeah.
which was sectarian violence. But now, because it's been so many years of online trolling and da da da, earlier we were all caught up in like individual cases. But I do now, when I put it all together, experiences of me and many other people, I just see that this is very systemic. So all this while we were talking about individuals being attacked, but actually it is systemic, which is promoted by the troll army of the political party in power, and also by the by the practitioners of the current political ideology who enjoy impunity. So which is why they can attack. As far as physical attack is concerned, yes, there was stalking for 5 months where somebody was actually there were some four, five different voices, 200-300 phone numbers. Most of them were internet phone numbers. So I used to keep blocking, but there was no possible way of not know of knowing that this is the same person. Yeah. And so each time I would be in the market or at the gym or in the balcony, I would get a call saying, "Oh, you're standing here. We'll come and throw acid at you." Or you're buying subsidies in the market. Or we are going to gang rape you right then and there. Or your husband has just left. We are going to enter the house and attack you again. And bringing my profession clearly into the conversation that बहुत reporter बनती हो, बहुत encounter पे story करिए. So stuff like that. So because Sania, it's been like so many years, the way to deal for me particularly is that I just keep blocking it out, because I've understood that engaging with this scale of a backlash also stops me from doing my work. So either I can do my work or I can keep following up on all whatever is happening. So, but on 25th January, somebody had called in the morning saying they'll enter the house and throw acid. And at night, somebody did try to break in, but when I shouted and stuff, the person was gone. I do want to say that this is not unique to me. And I do want to say that I'm an extremely privileged person living in Delhi, writing in English for international publications, and having some degree of access, which most journalists do not have. So, for example, like the Kishore Wangcham, Kishore Chand Wangcham in Manipur, who was arrested several times over, Siddiq Kappan, who's already in jail for almost over a year now. Yeah. Similarly, for Asif Sultan for 1,000 days. I think today is like 1,000 days. So I think it is more systemic. And I do feel now increasingly and very strongly that the conversation on press freedom has to move beyond our individual experiences. And we have to start talking about strengthening the democratic structures that can actually protect press freedom. What often happens in the narrative about press freedom, and particularly the Western narrative about press freedom in India, is that we get caught up in individual trauma stories. And I am not saying that we should not talk about it, but I am saying that that is not the only thing that we should be talking about.
Reporters Without Borders in its Press Freedom Index ranked India 142 among 180 countries and said India is a dangerous country for journalists. Was it always this case? Was India always a dangerous country for journalists? What has changed now? To
put it shortly, what has changed now is that our democratic structures have weakened so much that the same constitution or the same democratic system that should have protected press freedom is not there. It doesn't exist. So what has happened is that it's not like earlier journalists were not attacked. There are several cases of journalists being killed, attacked, still dealing with criminal cases. But the rise, exponential rise in the violence against journalists, the exponential rise of criminal cases, law and order related cases against journalists, where you can even be arrested for a social media post, where you can even be arrested for example, Pavan Jaiswal, who did a story from Mirzapur on how children are being given roti and salt in midday meal. And even for that, you can get a criminal conspiracy case against you. I think the systemic change of where a prime minister who does not hold a press conference for 7 years, where cabinet ministers dismiss journalists by calling them prostitutes. I think an environment of impunity has been created for people who are upset with the journalists doing their jobs. So I think what has changed is the systemic attack against journalists and the government having no interest in protecting press freedom.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, many journalists regularly get notices sent over. Their homes are raided by the police. A few have been arrested for just covering a story. There are a few who are being investigated and have criminal cases against them. We've seen the recent report on surveillance and Pegasus. Why is it so difficult to do journalism these days? And is this the case for all journalists, or is there a type or a kind of journalist that the government is going after right now?
I think we are living in a time where any journalism is anti-national. That kind of
real
political,
journalism.
any
real journalism is anti-national, I guess.
The other one I'm not even counting as journalism. So anything that you do which is fair to your profession and which anybody should be doing if you're honest to your profession has been labeled with things like anti-nationalism. So if you look at the propaganda model of Chomsky or whatever, in any dictatorial regimes, anything that is used, you create a common enemy. So right now, the common enemy that has been created is anybody who questions the government. So, and then this is also a time, like I said, where there is a corporate political nexus, where if you toe the line of the government, you not just benefit in terms of access to sources, you do not just benefit in terms of enjoying the patronage of the government or getting exclusive interviews with the prime minister who doesn't otherwise. But it's also a time where you make money because the same corporate groups who align with the government are happy sponsoring you, happy investing, and all of that. So I think this is a time where 90%, 95% of the so-called mainstream media has actually toed the line of the government and is part of this propaganda model that exists right now in this country. And it's that 5% which is on the margins and working with less resources and is being targeted. I always say that this is also a time where the news organizations that have money and resources are not practicing journalism. And the ones who are practicing journalism who do not have the money or the resources to actually go ahead and do more.
Yeah. Coming back to the work that you've been doing, tell us a little about how easy or difficult has it been for you as a journalist who, under constant threats and attacks, just to be able to do your job? Are you worried about your safety? Are you worried or scared when you step out, when you're reporting, when you're out there to cover a story? Are you worried that you may get attacked, you may get kidnapped, you may, like the kind of threats that you've received, we'll throw acid on you, and the rape threats and the death threats? Does that worry you, and how do you cope with it?
I don't even know how to answer this question any longer. Okay. I think what worries me more than my own well-being is the well-being of the people associated with me. So, for example, when I did the UP police encounter story, And I also did one other investigation on how some 150 people were charged with National Security Act. And again, a lot of them were from the marginalized communities in UP. And I remember receiving a call from the top cop in UP saying that, till when are you going to keep doing these stories? We know where your mother lives. So, so that is the kind of thing that really scares me now. As far as my well-being is concerned, of course, for example, like what happened recently is, like I just told you, that for 5 months, when somebody is constantly identifying your location, it does take a lot of effort to walk on the road and think that the next person walking next to you with a bottle in their hand are not about to throw acid on you. So it does take a lot of effort to not keep thinking about it and to continue functioning and continue doing your daily work and whatever, and also not let self censorship set in.
Yeah.
But what has also helped me is that I've had, thankfully, a lot of support from people around me, in the sense that, for example, my personal network, my friends, or some fellow journalists, or some senior women journalists who have actually stepped in. So there is no institutional mechanism to help yourself. So,
Yeah.
which is why one has to create informal networks to keep getting support. And what one thing that I've also learned, which did not naturally come to me earlier, is that now I also ask for help. Earlier, I would never ask for help and keep taking it on. But
Yeah.
now I have learned to ask for help. And when I can't function, I tell people I can't function any longer. So I think that has to slow down sometimes has really helped me.
Yeah. Well, more power to you, Neha. You are definitely somebody who's very brave, and the kind of things that have happened, and events that have taken place. So it's all I can say is more power to you. My last two very quick questions to you, because we're running out of time. Do you think you get attacked more because of your gender? Has that ever come in the way? And my last question would be, what would your advice be for independent journalists living and working in India today?
So to answer your first question, I think, what was the first question?
Do you think you get attacked more because of your gender?
Yeah,
Has
okay,
that ever
yeah.
come in the way?
So for this, I want to say that yes, gender definitely plays a role, because each time when a woman journalist is attacked, people start saying, "Oh, you slept with somebody," "Oh, you are a whore," "Oh, you are a sex worker," "Oh, you're a this," "Oh, you're that." But when a man is attacked, they say, "Oh, this person is paid." So I think that distinction, and actually, I'm now very amused by it, because uh, I'm like, okay, I can also be corrupt and
Paid.
just get be bribed and do wrong
Yeah.
stuff. But and I don't know how sleeping with somebody is going to make you do a certain kind of story. That is also beyond me now. Uh, Sometimes I also, it's very amusing now, because I remember somebody writing to me, "Oh, she's the wife of a Lashkar-e-Toiba leader," and I was like, why am I not the leader, but why am I the wife? So so even here I'm being denied agency. So yes, it is that. And also in the offline world, like for example, I've often thought about where I've been in hostage type situations. For example, this RSS story that I was telling you about, and just the fact that somebody can come and tear off my clothes. They don't have to slap me, they don't have to beat me up, but just that. So yes, there is a lot of risk that way. But having said that, I would also say, Sania, that but this is also big, but this is also a time where journalists, regardless of their gender, in some way, if they are dissenting and if they are showing the mirror to the government, they are getting attacked, they are getting jailed, and they are facing lots of threats.
What would your advice be for independent journalists living and working in India today?
uh, uh, my advice for this is that two things. One is that don't think that the stories that you will do will run the house. So please do something also to support your journalism in terms of resources, because especially this is the time when independent journalists are facing a lot of legal threats, are facing a lot of attacks. So, and because the system is such that it does not support independent journalists, if whether you require legal for your legal expenses, for your health expenses, I think so that is very important. But having said that, I have work wise, I've never felt better. So I do feel that there is a lot of satisfaction working as an independent journalist. So that I wouldn't trade off for anything. So everybody who's interested should keep doing their work, but don't think that not having any padding is not important.
On that note, Neha, thank you so much. I can only say more power to you, and thank you for the amazing work that you're doing. And you're a very brave, courageous journalist, and we all look forward to seeing your work. Stay safe and stay in touch. And thank you again so much for coming on the Sania Farooqui show today.
Thank you so much, Sania. Right. Love talking to you.
Likewise. And for those of you who've joined us, thank you so much for watching. I hope you will subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Spotify. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter as well to stay in touch and updated on everything that's coming up next on the Sania Farooqui show. I'm going to see you again next week.